think about becoming a mother?
I thought about it different times, I guess, but I was never sure if I wanted to. I was sure that if I would, I wanted to be late, meaning for sure after my 30s or if possible during my 40s. And my mom was a gynecologist, so she always told me that if I want to be a mother that late, or if I'm not even sure if I want to be a mother, I should maybe freeze my eggs or take care to make the chances of that happening bigger. I always had this idea that I wanted to travel a lot and do a lot of things before I would be responsible for another human being. I also had this idea that maybe it was just not for me. Maybe that's not what I wanted. I never had a partner that I was like, okay, this is the person that I think I really want to stay with and have children with. If I would have had kids before I was 30, there is a lot of things I wouldn't have time to have questions about myself and about, I don't know, how women are perceived, what is expected from women in our society, and just things of my own psyche that I think if I would have children, I wouldn't have found the time to actually question that. So I don't advise, it's not like I think people should have children in a later stage or that. I just think for me, I feel really empowered to be able to ask these questions and to feel more and more comfortable to be like, maybe I don't want to have children and I don't feel less of a woman because of that. But I still question like, what when I'm 60 and what if I am 60 and I don't have a partner and I don't have children? Isn't that gonna feel a little bit lonely? And I'm happy that I'm having the time to ask all of that and to bring it into therapy and talk to my therapist. And like, I might never have a final answer, like this is what I want or this is not what I want, but I think it's really important to question.
And how old were you when you actually started doing the research and preparing for it?
My mom spoke about it with me when I was like 25 the first time, and unfortunately she passed away when I was 28, so she wasn't around to support on the treatment. And then a few years later, when I was 31, I was like, okay, if I do this, it should be soon. And so I didn't do that much research, to be honest. I just, spoke to the doctor, read a couple of articles, and since my mother advised me to do it, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it.
What did you know at that stage?
I didn't know much how it would be like until I had my first appointment with the doctor, where she explained me how it was, that you take hormones, you inject hormones yourself. So you buy different kinds of hormones and you inject them yourself.
Where?
Usually in your belly, you just make like a fold of fat and you inject them.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. It's
So you do it 10 or 15 days in a row, every day?
In a row, every day. From what I remember, every day. But during that time, you go to the doctor every, 3-4 days to get monitored how the development of the eggs is going. Because I know that sometimes even depending on the date that you want to do it, maybe you should even take a pill to make it come later.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly. I just remember that I came to the doctor kind of in the exact right time, which was maybe a bit after my period, something like this.
Okay, so that's more like a beginning of the cycle.
Yeah. But this, I am not sure exactly the right time.
Mm-hmm. And where was this?
This was in Belo Horizonte in Brazil.
What were the costs associated with it?
Well, I would have to say in reais, because I paid it there, and the reason I chose to do it there also was because it was cheaper there. I had a bad experience here in Germany because there was a clinic offering the first consultation for free for women that would like to, for women that were interested in this procedure. And so I had an appointment and I went and I made sure to even, because you need to sign a paper, right, with acknowledging some things, and this paper was in German, and even though I can read German, there was some things I didn't understand so well, and so I made sure to write on the paper, like, I was informed that this first consultation is completely free. And so the doctor did a few tests, very, very quick. And I left, and then it was kind of like a broker, like an insurance broker that takes care of different fertility clinics, from what I understood. And they kept on writing me, asking if I wanted to continue with the treatment. And at first I didn't. I was like, maybe later. It was in the beginning of the pandemic, so, you know, everything was kind of put on hold. And I told them later, like, yeah, actually I decided to go with another doctor. I'm going to do it somewhere else. And then a few months later I got a bill for that doctor's appointment. So I was pretty angry, but thankfully I wrote the broker and I was like, hey, I even wrote on the paper that this was informed to me, that it was free. And I took a picture of it, so I had proof of it. And so they said the doctor did a procedure that actually costs money, but he didn't inform me before, like, we're actually gonna do this and this is not free. So, but the broker assumed the cost. They said they were gonna pay the doctor, so I didn't have to pay. But yeah, I think that helps that I wrote this on the paper,
Yeah,
took a picture.
that was smart move, yeah.
Yeah.
And in Brazil, in euros, how much was the whole thing?
Well, I think here in Europe the same procedure would cost at the time around 5,000 euros, and there it costed 15,000 reais, which by the conversion of euro nowadays should be like 3,000 euros or less.
Mm-hmm. So how long normally does this procedure take? For you, how long did it take from the first treatment of injecting hormones to...
I think around 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you went to see your doctor every couple of days?
Yes. So I went to the doctor. She explained me how it would be and which hormones I should buy and when to take. I went back home and started taking them. It's important to know that also the hormones are quite expensive. That's extra. That's not included extra. Usually on the treatment. Okay. You need to buy them yourself, and they are, not cheap. And so I started the procedure at home. It was very simple, very easy to do. It looks like, this little needle that people that have diabetes take, it's just very simple to inject everything. I didn't feel much from the hormones. Like I heard from my doctor that some people can, have, anxiety or different things caused by the hormones. I didn't really feel much. Went pretty fine. And I had a monitoring every second day or third day through an ultrasound kind of thing. And and then when it was time, when the doctor could see that the eggs were mature enough, we booked the day for the extraction of the eggs.
And how does it, what is it like? How does it work?
It's, I'm not a doctor, so a lot of things I already don't remember so well, but it's made through your vaginal canal. How do you say it? Through your, your vaginal canal. You are asleep. I don't think it's a complete anesthesia, but you are not aware, so you are...
So you don't feel any pain?
No.
Okay.
No, you don't feel any pain. You feel maybe the injection of the anesthesia at first, which is also fine. And so the procedure is pretty quick, and after you rest with the doctor, and then if you're okay, after some hours you can go.
Okay, and then the eggs are... What happens to them next?
they count the eggs and freeze them. And
Do you know how many you have?
Yes, apparently I had a good count. They said that usually, if I remember well, you should have at least 15. So if you have less, it's advised to make a second procedure. And I had 30.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a good count.
So do you pay every month?
You pay a monthly fee to... No, I pay it yearly. I pay a yearly fee. And that in euros in Brazil would be around 250, 300 euros per year.
Okay.
To keep it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so were there any side effects that you've noticed?
There was a couple side effects. I'm pretty sure my doctor spoke about it, or it was written on the paper that I read before the procedure or signed. But you know, it's said that I think it was 1% of women have this side effect, or maybe a bit more. But you know, like if I'm reading something about a surgery or something and it says 1% of people will go through this complication, I'll be like, yeah, it's not going to be me. But in this case, it was me, and I learned after that the youngest you are and the more active some hormones you have, the bigger the chance of having this, which is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. From what I understood, the hormones that you take before, they hyperstimulate your ovaries, right?
In order to produce more eggs.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Instead of producing one like you do every month, I end up with 30 or more, right? Because 30 was the healthy ones, and there might be a little more. Might be a little bit more, actually. Yeah. 30 were fully developed, like ready to freeze. Maybe there was some that was not fully developed. Yeah. So you take these hormones to hyperstimulate, to make something that is not normal, natural to your ovaries. And from what I understood, after the procedure to take the eggs out, you can actually continue to be hyperstimulated because, of course, the hormones action don't stop immediately in the moment where you remove the eggs. So this is what happens, and it can cause complications to the point of, like, you can have a twist fallopian tube, you can need a surgery for it. From what I researched afterwards, because I didn't really wanted to see so much before what can happen, it can get pretty serious, but apparently the percentage is really low. But in my case, I just had my ovaries kept on expanding. Oh. So they were quite big, and because of that, I had water going through my belly. There's some reaction of your body that if you have an inflammation there, I don't know, it causes accumulation of water. And at first, that is kind of normal. That can happen in the first days because after the surgery, you moved into this area, so you might have constipation. You are supposed to feel a bit bloated for a few days. So since I was not in the same city as the doctor, I was waiting the first days to see if it would get better. And since I didn't come to the doctor, she could also not access exactly what was happening to me just by what I was saying on the phone.
Because you were in Germany?
No, I was in Brazil, but I was 1 hour away from where the doctor was. Okay. I lived 1 hour away. So going to her would mean taking a car and taking 1 hour of road, which I wanted to avoid. Anyway, I heard that for the first days it's normal that you feel some discomfort and that, you know, you have some... that your belly grows a bit bigger, that you have some bloating. So by the second day, I started feeling a lot of pain, and I was not sure this was normal, and the doctor told me to wait a bit more. By the third day, I was really in a lot of pain. I could only be in bed, and I could only be in a certain position, and my belly was pretty big, and I started to get pretty worried, and the doctor told me to come to see her. But at that point, I was in so much pain that I couldn't imagine being in a car for 1 hour. I wasn't driving, my father was driving me. But the idea of like being stuck in a car for an hour, I was like, no, 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 this is gonna get better, it's gonna pass. And by the fourth day, it didn't get better, and then I really had to be driven to the hospital. And I was in the back of the car holding a bunch of pillows in a lot of pain. I had to ask my father to stop in the middle of the road because I just needed to change position for a second. I was really in a lot of pain. And yeah, and then I arrived to the doctor and she assessed me and she decided that it was good that I was taken to hospital and might need to do a procedure to drain this water from my belly. At that point, I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I could only be like this.
Oh my God.
So I stayed on the waiting room, like leaning on the chair, you know, and she realized that, yeah, this amount of pain that I was feeling probably was not going back. So it would probably be needed that the water was drained. But then I went to the hospital, she came with me, she helped me a lot. But I also had problems because in Brazil I didn't have health insurance, and normally if you go to a private hospital not having health insurance, they don't want to let you go in. So they didn't want to let me in. I had to wait in the entrance, and
wow, crazy.
My doctor kind of had to make a scandal to make me go in, even though she worked at this hospital, you know. So when I was finally in, there was a couple of hours I had to wait to make a few exams. And during this time, I had really a lot of pain. And finally, they gave me different kinds of painkillers. I don't remember exactly, but I know they gave me morphine. And only when they gave me morphine the second time, they realized the amount of pain I was feeling, because it was not really helping.
It wasn't working.
It was working, but I could still not stay straight. I was still in a lot of pain, so they realized the amount of pain I was feeling. Even my father told me, like, yeah, I didn't realize it was so much pain because you were not
showing it or something.
I was not screaming, but I was like, you know, in a lot of pain. And I was like, okay, pretend you're not in pain. Just like, I don't know, like, you know, like focus, whatever. Anyway, then after a lot of exams, they realized they did need to make this procedure, and so they did it. I had at that point 6 liters of water in my belly, so they drained 6 liters of water. And so the aftermath of that was also quite tricky, because if you drain 6 liters of water out of your body, you lose a lot of minerals, you lose a lot of important things, right? So I needed to stay in the hospital then for 2 or 3 days after. And this was also quite traumatic, because I needed to stay, you know, with infusion, and I was completely dried out, so they couldn't catch a vein on me to put the infusion. So the doctor, even though it was a really good doctor in the hospital, with a camera, whatever, like, he had to stitch me, I think, more than 30 times before he could actually catch a vein and keep it. They put me on my arm, and they lost the vein, so they put it here. Like, I came out of the hospital full of bruises, but it was really important that they kept me on this, because I lost a lot of minerals, and they had to watch some important vital signs that, yeah, I needed to be kept there for 3 days.
How long you were in the hospital? 3 days?
Yeah, I was in the hospital for 3 days after the treatment.
And how did the recovery go after that point?
It was a bit traumatic, I have to say, but I was very well taken care of by the doctors and by my family and everything. The aftermath, I went home, and I still had, my belly was still quite expanded, bloated. And the doctor told me that it would recede with the days, and that's what happened. But I think it took me between 1 and 2 weeks to, like, look normal and to not feel pain anymore. So
it was still painful after?
It was still painful after. Not just the belly that was still a bit bloated, because from what I understood, all my organs were compressed by this water that was inside my belly. So of course, my lungs moved, my ovaries moved, my uterus moved, everything was moved because I had 6 liters of water accumulated here. So that was the main cause of the pain, you know, and after, of course, it was still a bit painful. So there was a lot of days of like just laying down and resting. But after a week, it was already good enough that I could like return to life. And after 2 weeks, I was okay. I watched some documentaries after, and they were really easy to find, and I just wish I watched them before, because they speak about ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, and I wish I had a better idea of how it can play out, although I don't think this would stop me from doing the treatment.
Right, so even after the whole thing that you've gone through, you still would choose to freeze your eggs?
I would still choose to do it, yeah. I mean, of course, my complication was difficult, but it was not something irreversible or that needed big surgery or anything like this. I understood that it can go to a level that you might need bigger surgery, that you can have bigger consequences, like every procedure, I would say, right? Every health procedure there is a small chance or a little bigger chance, depending on your age and your risk factors, etc., that it can go wrong. But it was just a reminder for me that like, 1% is 1%, and it is a chance that it might happen to you. So it's really important to inform yourself or of all the things that could go not so well whenever you do a procedure. Yeah.
How long did it take to restore the your normal cycle after that?
Between 2 or 3 months, I think it took my cycle to go back to normal.
How old were you when you froze your eggs? 33?
I was 32 when I froze my eggs. Yeah.
And how do you think it's gonna work out? Do you see it at all, or you just don't think about it?
I do think about it. Surely I think about it. And I'm still undecisive if I do want to have children or not. I question a lot if it's also this certain pressure from society of what is supposed to, what it is really to be a woman, if motherhood is a defining part of being a woman, which I don't think so. But still I feel the pressure and the fear also of deciding not to and then wanting to and being too late, which is one of the reasons I froze my eggs, which would give me a bigger chance to have a later decision in life, but anyway is not a guarantee for sure. If I would have a child, I would really like it to be in a really solid relationship.
So you would definitely, you wouldn't choose to raise your child alone?
I could. I mean, it's not something that I completely deny. I just think it's really hard to raise a child on your own. And I think it's nice to share, to have a different role model, you know, to have more than one person, so that the child can have also different role models to look at. If I would have a child, I would prefer that there is product of love. Product is not really the good word, but yeah, it's coming out of like meeting someone, having this deep love and wanting to create something together with this love. That being said, I would also consider adoption if I decided to have a child at some point. But I do, like, my brother has 2 kids and he's older than me, and I do see the beauty of, you know, falling in love and having your kids and having that little person that you're gonna teach and you're gonna raise and you're gonna teach your values and give a lot of love and receive a lot of love. I do find it the most beautiful thing you can do. I still, by watching it, I find it like an incredible experience. I'm just not sure if I really want to go through that, or if life is gonna bring that to me, right? Because I'm leaving it a lot to chance also. I'm not like, ooh, I'm at this age, by now I should be finding like my you know, the love of my life. No, I don't believe in love of your life. Well, the partner that
The right person.
The right person that if I would have a kid, if I would have children, that would be the person. I should be thinking of that. No, I'm really like living like, yeah.
Do you think that freezing your eggs gave you the security of sort of not thinking, because you now feel, did it change you somehow mentally, that you feel relaxed, that you don't have to hurry or worry?
It did relax. Freezing my eggs did relax me regarding time a little bit, because I always knew it's not a guarantee anyway. So I know that if I'm 40, even if I froze my eggs, my chances of holding the child, you know, that the pregnancy comes to fruition are anyway lower than a person that is younger, you know? It's not only about the age of the eggs itself, it's also your body and lots of other factors. So yes, it did relax me a bit, but it didn't relax me to the point of thinking like, oh yeah, I can just have them later, because I know that even taking care of that, it doesn't mean I'm going to be able to have a child when I'm 40. It does feel a bit like buying yourself a little bit of time, but it's not a guarantee. Because from some documentaries that I saw there is a lot of like fertility brokers selling it as if it would be like, don't worry about it now, you can freeze your eggs, you can take care of it later. And it's not exactly like that, you know. So I think it's really important to be aware of that. Unfortunately, our fertility does decrease after a certain age, and there is not much to do still about that. So I just think it's really important to inform yourself of also the bad things that can happen, even if it's a low percentage, to know what could happen. And yeah, find a good doctor and speak a lot with them.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. For someone who had kids to say, oh, I actually realized if I would choose, I would not have had kids, you know, it's... But there are some people that have this opinion, and it doesn't mean they don't love their children.
No.
It just means that they didn't know it would be, the experience would be like this, and if they could choose after, they would decide not to do it. But also, if they wouldn't do it, they would never know. So it's a tricky thing. But recently there was an article, I think on The Guardian or the New York Times, about a woman, a mother, who was saying that actually if I would know beforehand, I would have decided not to have children. For a man, like if I would know that it would be like this to be a dad, I would decide not to be a dad. People are still like, ooh. But I think I'm happy that this conversation is getting more and more there, and people are having access earlier and earlier to this topic of like, hey, actually it's your decision, and a lot of things will change in your life if you do and if you don't. And maybe you can access all this information, talk to people who had different experiences to make a more informed decision in the end of what you want to do.
Yeah.